Alright, this is going to be 100 Thieves versus Optic Gaming. Let's see how the bands start off. Medios. Tom Kench. Okay. Zoe being banned away. So let's just expect the Ezreal, Kalista, Zoe out of Optic. I could actually see letting Ezreal through, to be completely honest. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think there's other problematic picks. Evelyn being banned. Not something I would attribute it to Medios, but maybe something's going on inside of scrims, so I don't really know. I haven't been following his OPGG, it's just not a champion I would think of Medios playing, but whatever. Orianna and Kalista now banned away by 100 Thieves. That's kind of interesting, because Kalista should actually be a pretty high-profile pick. You know, high priority pick. And, okay, well, Azir banned away by Optic. And so Ezreal is actually up for grabs, and 100 Thieves saying okay to that, potentially. And they take Braum, so there's a lot of big picks that are still available. And I hope that's not an NA Jace. Yep, there's Kog'Maw. And I was talking about the... Okay, never mind. Locked in Ezreal for Arrow. And right here, if Optic just wants to be safe, you can just pick your support. It does kind of give away a lot of information with how the bottom lane is right now. I think picking jungler is not really a necessity, because now this is like one of those situations where you can go scaling now if you're on 100 Thieves. Rengar is a very heavy commitment to pick so early on. It lets the enemy team sculpt, draft like team compositions that are particularly good against dive and engage, and just holding him down and stuff. And when you have the Ezreal, you're looking at something that does spike. It does play around Rengar's spike, you know, around 3-4 items and stuff. But don't like the fact that they're going for it as early as they are. Seems very, very, very novice mistake. Yep, there's the Kog'Maw. And Kog I was talking about in the previous VOD review. He is popping up big time on Korea right now as an answer to Vayne, most notably, and then Kalista and even Ezreal. Kalista, although, doesn't get seen that much, but he's popping up quite frequently in all those lanes. So now, 100 Thieves goes with Ryze. I think that they could have just responded jungler here, but maybe they're afraid of the mid lane champion pool being pinched. And it looks like Optic Gaming very quick to respond with the Malzahar. So the Malzahar here is interesting, because I talked about how later on into the game, Malzahar is really good against Ryze. Early on, depending on what the jungle dynamic is, Ryze can actually do some stuff against Malz. So we'll have to see what the 2v2 matchup is in mid lane, and we'll have to see who the jungler is, because it's important to note that Rengar on the red side, a little bit more difficult to crack angles late game, because you don't get much value out of it around Baron, right, at the later stages of the game. And then obviously you're not going to get much value around dragons at early parts if the enemy blue team just has a turtle composition behind the Drake, sort of like what we saw happen with in the CLG game. Gangplank now being banned, and then Gnar. That's really interesting. Ban one champion, and then you're willing to ban Gnar, but then not pick Gangplank, even though you have the counter pick. 100 Thieves actually ban Ornn. And it looks like Cho'Gath, this is a champion I haven't seen in ages, ends up getting picked up. Now they're all over the place with their draft. They're very, very all over the place. But Cho'Gath does offer a little bit more of that scaling. They have a lot of silences inside of their kit. There's the Sejuani. And what is 100 Thieves actually going to pick as a response to Cho? This would be super interesting for Alawi in a way, but then if you're Alawi, even when you have the Baron or something, you're very reliant on Sejuani's ultimate. Really like the Shen, offers a lot of protection to bottom lane, lots of plays can be made with the Sejuani, not that bad against Cho'Gath. Lots of versatility in 100 Thieves' team composition, and then Morgana ends up coming out as the counterpick support. So we're going to be able to protect the Ezreal or the Malz. Now, fortunately, something that we can talk about early on, right, is that Optic Gaming's team comp, in the really late stages of the game, as long as Malzahar or Ezreal remain alive, they're both extremely obnoxious against these champions, especially if these champions don't have summoner spells. Okay, Cho'Gath in certain dynamics is still able to sort of replace them in some 2v2 and 3v3 like skirmish scenarios, like after a really bloody team fight or something, depending on how tanky he is and then what champions from 100 Thieves are left alive. The problem is, though, is that if Malzahar ends up getting not exhausted literally, but if he ends up, you know, being exhausted inside of a team fight, not the summoner spell, I just mean like in terms of he's not able to do anything, and then Ezreal gets taken down or something, Kog'Maw is just he's gonna wreck house. He's gonna be very, very tanky against Malzahar. You can guarantee he's gonna have the Wit's End, he's gonna have the Guinsoo's, he's gonna have the Quicksilver Sash. It's gonna be very hard for Malz to really bring him down. So then you end up relying on the Rengar, who if he didn't get him already, Kog'Maw's gonna be a nightmare. So a lot of pressure actually on Ezreal in the later stages of the game. Black Shield obviously gonna be able to help out quite a bit. Early on now, we look at the 2v2 dynamic and stuff, Rengar should be able to get a lot of pressure in priority, but if Rengar loses it even for a second, this Optic team composition falls so far behind. Ryze should be able to control the right-hand side river early on, and that should actually grant a lot of coverage to Meteos, because Meteos doesn't actually want to go up to top lane anyway, because if you think of the map and stuff, you have the Gromp and you have the Wolves, and then you have a Shen who's able to just be defensive. He can play aggressive in this matchup, but it's not something that you necessarily need to do because, again, you're blue side Shen. So, with that being said, Meteos gets to play onto the side of the map where he is going to feel strongest, he's going to have the most value, and then that also plays to the strength of his mid laner. And this is kind of a little bit awkward for Akaadian to do anything with. Akaadian not really going to care all that much about the left-hand side. And so he's going to be forced to play on the right-hand side. So these mid-lane champions and then the scaling inherently inside of this team composition will dictate the pace of the game. If this game goes beyond 4 items, you want Clutch Gaming's team composition 100% of the time. Or not Clutch, 100 Thieves. Okay, so we just speed it up. I have not watched the games yet. And we have a pause. First strike of the game is Mountain. Really, really big for both parties. When you think about it for when you think about it for a red team, you basically think about, you know, shredding it with Malzahar that much, you know, easier. Also just makes it that much easier to get it just because you have Cho'Gath, so he's able to lock down, secure, you know, Elder, Dragon, Baron. Very, very easy. So it just amplifies the speed at which your team can take it. And then obviously for 100 Thieves, you want it just to take it away from the opponent, but also for your, you know, your pushes and your sieges. You want to make sure that Kog'Maw is able to shred the turrets as fast as possible. You don't have to waste any time. Akaadian starting on red. Whereas Sedge also starts on red. Sejuani now pathing into blue side. Now, what I would like to see here is, so if you're Akaadian, you should actually identify that you can't do anything, right? And what I mean by that is, you can't gank mid. That's just not going to happen, right? You have Spellbook on Ryze. You're not going to get any value there, okay? Can't gank mid, can't gank top, start on the red side anyway, can't gank bottom. It's just not possible. You can't do anything, right? So hopefully he does this. Hopefully he identifies this, and then he can either do this, or he can just do this, right? Alternatively, he could do this with a recall factored in, or whatever. He could do any of these routes, right? If he does anything outside of that, it's a pretty big blunder, right? Now, Meteos can either identify that and just do this, right? And then look for some vision, and then fall back, and then farm the jungle, and just scale naturally, and then match, or counter-gank Akaadian. Realistically, the options are very limited for both junglers. Although, with the trade that happened level 1, this does change some things up. And Akaadian now on the Wolves. Arrow and Elimination doing what they're doing. Down and bottom. Yeah, and you can see that Meteos is actually just continuing to farm, so this is a pretty good pathing by him. Don't like how he's just going over to his Wraiths, unless he anticipates that Akaadian is going to path down to the Golems and then maybe look for something bottom lane, but that just seems completely unrealistic. Now you can see Akaadian gets the Scuttle Crab, comes into Wraiths. Gonna end up finding them just by the skin of his teeth, and now you can see that he comes into mid, shoves Ryu out, but it doesn't really do all that much. So here's the thing, is Acadian made a decision to go for the Scuttle Crab and then proceed into the left-hand side, or he proceeded to proceed left, right? And then into Meteos' red side jungle. If Meteos had already cleared that, and then Acadian ends up pathing into mid, nothing's going to be achieved, and now everyone knows where he's going. He showed his CS, okay, and we actually still count that despite the change, right? We're not cavemen. And it means that he's going to path up into his golems, which now everyone knows where he is. Everyone knows exactly when his camps respawn. It becomes really awkward for Rengar. If he had intention to get the Scuttle Crab and then do nothing, it would have been a lot better for him to just do this route, right? Into a recall if he wants to get, you know, boots or something, or maybe just get a longsword or whatever. This route would have been a lot more versatile. It would have enabled him to conceal his route, keep the opponent guessing unless he was late to the Scuttle Crab or something. Even if they see him on the Scuttle Crab, remember, his CS at this point is not that high, right? They know that his Gromp is still up, his Blue's still up, etc. They don't know exactly what his route is going to be because he still has 3 camps available before the rubber banding camp comes back into play about a minute later. Or a minute and a half later. So I think that the route that he chose is definitely suboptimal considering the team comps. Yeah, he comes over, he does the golems. And now you can see, like, what are you gonna do? He gets green smite and he gets a longsword. I don't know what Meteos is doing. You can see that he comes down into bottom, but this isn't a situation where you can really come down into bottom to do anything. Now, there's a term that I used. I started using it with tempo, right? Pressure ganking, aka pranking, right? This is a term that I'm gonna try to popularize. Pranking is really important because high-level players, every auto attack, everything that they do, for the most part, is pre-planned. A few seconds or 30, 45 seconds in advance. They know how they want to hit the wave, why they're hitting it, why they're autoing a certain minion, how many, auto attacks a certain minion has left, how many skills it has left to absorb, right? If Ezreal can kill it with a Q, if it, it's able to die to just an auto, maybe 2 autos in a Q, etc. What that ends up doing is if Optic was, for instance, in complete fog of war, Arrow and Elimination for the previous, 15, 25 seconds have been autoing and hitting the wave in a way that they're trying to write a story, right? A story for what they want to do with the lane. If Meteos Sejuani ends up just being like, Chuck Testa and shows up in the lane and forces them to back off, this actually ruins the story. So what can end up happening is maybe they did something that requires no assistance to come to Cody Sun and Afromu, and they would end up getting a pretty big advantage. It's a little bit of a gamble, right? And then, because they softened up so many minions with auto attacks because their intent was to shove, and then Meteos showed up and forced them to back off, they might inadvertently get zoned out of the wave. Meteos didn't kill them, he didn't use any summoners, didn't blow a summoner, but he destroyed the lane. He dramatically alters the state of the lane. Now, not in this instance, but I'm just talking about junglers can do this. That is a legitimate thing that you can do. Because if your prank ends up being successful, all right, just a prank, bro, you could potentially zone the enemy out of, half a level. You could zone the enemy out of, 6 CS. Well, there goes an entire jungle camp in terms of gold, right? You didn't get it because of the time commitment that you made. But if you're doing stuff like this and then you're farming in close proximity to rubber band camps, you're going to feel a lot better. You're going to still feel relevant in the game, and your laners are going to thank you. So this is all pretty good. Now, unfortunately, right here, this is not a situation where a prank would actually be that beneficial. You can't really expect to gank Morgana and Ezreal here. It's just going to be way too difficult. And you can see that Meteos doesn't really have anything to do. And you can see Rengar now going to come into the jungle, and this is where the Rengar pick is a little bit strange. They're going to have to utilize it very well with the Malzahar. And it looks like you can see that Malz is behind on CS. He's behind on lane state, and also you have to factor in how many Voidlings does Ryu have. Maybe that adds 1 or 2 CS. See, Ryu comes in here, he gets another pink, and Meteos just continues to power farm. He doesn't have the green wards available to him yet. Cadian was able to get a lot of ward coverage in, and I really like how Meteos checked for a pink. And you can see now they're trying to pressure that right-hand side of the map. And Meteos ended up losing the smite fight. Shen is 6, shoving in a wave. You can see neither team really getting too much value. And this is okay for Optic early on, but again, they really, really need to make something happen. Between the 10 and 15 minute mark, something is going to have to go their way. Rengar is level 6, Malzahar 6 now, Teleport is up on Zig. So we're going to have to see if they can make Sparks fly. You can see that Cody Sun and Aphromoo under a lot of pressure, lots of turret damage down on that bottom tier 1 turret. It's not the end of the world if it goes down. It's okay if they lose it. Just depends on the speed at which they lose it. Because again, Optic is the team composition that they want to accelerate very fast. This is pretty brutal now that Arrow's able to actually just pick up that honey fruit. You can see that not a lot of coordination actually coming out of 100 Thieves, at least not with the Shen player or anything. Now they know exactly where Ryu is. They know exactly where Meteos is. Blue now given over to Power of Evil, and both parties are still just, content to farm, seemingly. And now the dilemma here is that if they take the turret right now, it requires them to go back down into bottom. Even if it was 11 minutes or something and Herald was up, Mountain Drake is way too big of an objective to just give up freely. You have to keep your bottom lane in that proximity. Cadian flashes away, obviously respecting the fact that even if Someday couldn't join the fight, he could give the shield. Now you can see Cadian pathing down into bottom, and you can see Meteos just trying to counter and match gank, and that's basically all that he needs to do right now. Even if that turret falls right now, it's completely okay. Really like the ultimate by Ryu, but they weren't able to pick up the kill onto Acadian. Acadian goes down there, it's really, really, really bad. Think of Rengar in this state as like a Jace or like a Lucian lane. It's not something that you can really afford to have get behind. You can't have him getting killed needlessly. It's really, really problematic if that stuff starts happening. You see Acadian now pathing up to the top-hand side of the map. Maybe they want to do something against Shen, but I mean, if you look at this, let's just take a look at the lane state. Okay, this lane is coming into Shen. So now, if you're Acadian, you are now forced to go like this, and then path down into bottom. Now, this would be good if your bottom lane could have just got the turret right now, because what it would mean is that our elimination, they recall, they start pathing down to bottom, they get to like right here, you're right here or something, and then you converge into the bottom half side of the map together, right? And then you shove out the wave, you come over here, you get some vision over here, Power of Evil shoves in, Power of Evil gets a ward right here, clear out this vision, and then you collapse his 4, right? Zig has his teleport available, he shoved in the wave. If he wants to be really cheeky, shove in the wave, recall, run down to Dragon, and that way you're able to conserve your teleport. Not something that's entirely needed right now, it's just an option that they have. Everything that 100 Thieves is trying to do right now. Credit for elimination, he's at least trying to hit some bindings, but not a dominatrix in his spare time. Arrow able to get that recall off. And they can still execute a similar rotation. They can just capture the turret because Cody Sun and Afro are now locked into lane. I don't like how elimination's letting them get away. Because if he just denied the recall, you have to think about it, right? If they could have successfully denied Cog and Brahm's recall, even if it's just by 15 seconds, that's about the amount of time that Power of Evil is going to need to shove in the wave for Acadian to get down here, and then they escort up the wave. Doesn't matter, elimination doesn't have a lot of mana. He doesn't need a lot. All he needs is enough for one binding, and then he needs enough for one black shield. That's realistically all that he needs. By the time Arrow gets down into bottom, that would be around the time that Cody Sun and Aphromoo hit the fountain. So now, you shove in the wave, you go to Drake is 4, you get it, bottom lane is reset, mid lane's reset, Malzahar backs up, and now Acadian's free to do whatever he wants. Bottom lane goes even for a little bit longer, which probably just means that you end up getting the turret a few minutes down the line, which is ideally actually what you want. You're not really going to be open to a Shen gank, and even if the Shen gank somehow does end up occurring, the Mountain Drake is taken off the map. So worst case scenario, maybe you lose a turret, but you would have to really mess up catastrophically for this to end up occurring. So now, if you end up getting bottom tier 1 turret somewhere around like the 14-minute mark or something, this ties in with a perfect rotation and, like baton pass off with top lane. So now you can just recall, you can go top, and then top laner recalls, he goes bottom, shoves a wave, walks up to mid, meets with Malzahar, and then you converge as 5 on Herald. Spell Thief's already completed. You can see they shove it in. Power of Evil, not able to shove it in. He also already has the Quicksilver Sash. Now you can see this is kind of that play that we were talking about. It's not set up. Well, they're not even going to go for it. You can see that maybe they were looking for it, but not really going to find much success. And then obviously any stall that 100 Thieves can do is going to be exactly what they want. Look at how low that turret is. That's about to blow. That is a completely edged turret. Yeah. And gank doesn't end up working, but they do get some summoners. Well, they get one summoner, they trade. And the longer that 100 Thieves can actually just stall this and delay it, it's so much better for them. You can see that the Rengar pick, he's ahead in farm right now, but it could just be another champion. It doesn't need to be Rengar. And now even 100 Thieves is actually going to be the one that get to capitalize on a Mountain Drake. So that just goes to show you how much of a ball Optic dropped in the last, like, 5 minutes. Should never have been allowed to be possible. They're not utilizing this Malzahar. They're not utilizing the Rengar. Nothing is really going on. Acadian seems to be just doing stuff, but he could be doing almost similar stuff on different champions, and it would be a little bit more effective. You can see Ezreal's actually out of fuel, so he's going to be forced to recall. And this is just a nightmare situation. You know, the Ezreal Morgana lane is now behind in tempo, they're behind in pressure. You can see Cody Sun and Aphromoo, they shove in the wave, and they want to do this so they can arrive back to that lane as fast as possible. They can't afford to have that bottom tier 1 turret go down. It is a complete needle in Optic to just have that little bit of HP turret still continuing to live. It's not even necessarily just about the first gold turret, or the first turret gold. It's just about what it means for Ezreal and Morgana and what it means for the state of the map. So they finally get it. And now looks like maybe they're going to make a rotation to mid lane. They should probably just make a rotation to mid lane because Ezreal just came fresh off of a recall. So you can see that Cho'Gath is actually shoving up in top. He can shove this in. Ezreal and Morg and everyone could just rotate into mid. Ryze is going to back up. Malzahar shoves it in. And then Ezreal and Morg just go all the way back up. And then Cho'Gath recalls. Cho'Gath goes down into bottom. This would be fine. Cho'Gath gets to bottom, shoves the current wave, shoves the next wave. Depending on what the reactions is out of 100 Thieves, he can then either walk up to mid and do the play that we talked about earlier, because at this stage of the game, Herald's a very real capture, or he can shove in the wave and then walk through red side jungle, and that would be fine too. 100 Thieves has actually done everything pretty well up until this point. Could have done some things a little bit better, but I think they're basically holding on to everything that they needed to hold on to, and the payoff is gonna be quite big. So Optic is ahead in gold right now. Again, you know, factor in that turret, something that you really have to consider. You can see that Zig giving up a turret, or he doesn't want to give up a turret. Okay, so take a look at this. Right, let's just watch the last few minutes. Okay. So, you know that Shen is recalling. You see Ryze and Sejuani, right, in the mid. And then you have no vision, and Zig's going down to a turret. Now, here's the thing, okay? You're this late, you should approach cautiously from the right-hand side, okay? Because you don't know where Sejuani is, right? This ward doesn't get you anything. You know that she's not on her red, all right? And you don't know exactly where Shen is choosing to go. There's no reason to come to this turret, okay, when you just saw moments prior that Cody Sun and Aphromoo is committed down to bottom. Because there's no way to realistically defend the turret, right? They're going to get it on one wave or the next. So just give up the turret at this point and just sit back, wait for it, and then get the wave, and then permalock it. Because if you permalock it here, then it ends up being a thorn in 100 Thieves' side. Alternatively, you could have simply not come down into bottom, and you could have maybe made a play against Rift Herald, given that it's, you know, going to be 18 minutes or so. Imagine if Cho'Gath just walked to Rift Herald. Right? Malzahar establishes mid-pressure with Acadian and Lemon Nation, shove Ryze underneath the turret, clear out all this vision together. You have Arrow shove in the wave. It's not important that you get this turret. It's not about that kind of a tempo advantage right now. You have Arrow shoved into the turret, Arrow comes down, and now you have 5 members, you get the Herald, this turret dies, and then the teleport is useless. So now, use the teleport bottom lane. You'll have a backup, realistically, when Baron is going to be an actual potential threat. Teleport down into bottom lane, you eat everything, maybe come over, eat Gromp, eat Wolves, whatever. And then now, Acadian, with all the newfound vision on the left-hand side, Malzahar returns into mid lane, he just keeps pushing underneath, and again, control utility mage, mid-turret, very important, especially in this game. Arrow elimination come up, Power of Evil stays, I'm sorry, I think I just misspoke. Power of Evil stays in mid, and then Acadian just maintains vision control, and they look to get this turret. After they get this turret, then they play around Ryze's blues, and they look to utilize the Herald to crack open the map. Normally, I'm very anti using the Herald in such a poor manner. They could actually potentially hold on to the Herald a little bit longer, and if they did have the Mountain Drake, they could look to utilize it once they have the Baron. But they're not looking to do any of that. Oh, I really like the split screen. You can see they're coming to get the Herald now. You can see that Zig is just getting this. And let's say that Cody, Sun, and Aphromoo acknowledge that, and they just push on to the bottom tier 2 turret. It's still going to take them time. They should be able to get there. Everything should be okay in the end. Ocean Drake is the next dragon that's coming up, basically useless for both parties. Obviously, Optic is going to want to get that off the map as fast as possible, because they're the team that benefits from the Elder Drake the most. Needless fights happening across the map. Someday is okay. Oh, alright, yeah, Someday's going down. And meanwhile, up in top lane, Elimination died. And this is just an instance where you could concede top turret right here, right? You don't need to be defending this, especially because I think they know about Meteos. Let me just confirm. Yeah, they know. Oh, wait, maybe no, they don't. They don't know about Meteos. But this isn't a turret that you realistically need to defend. Could they defend it? Yes. Is it imperative that they defend? I think when Afro and Cody is showing this much intention, you should just be backing off. This is a little bit of a blunder. So we've seen this in this series. We've also seen it in the previous series. Players wanting to defend turrets that aren't that important. Now the Herald actually ends up getting popped by Optic, and this is actually going to be a pretty valuable one, because you're going to get, yeah, you're going to get tier 2. Okay, well that could have been done perhaps a little bit better onto Ryu. You end up getting 2 turrets, you lose top turret, and then if Arrow Elimination just didn't die, this would have been super, super beautiful situation. And now you can see 100 Thieves with that Mountain Drake and with that Kog'Maw just going straight for the Baron. They end up getting it. And this is a byproduct of Optic's lack of control. In the previous 3 minutes, they did end up getting those 2 turrets, and that's not something to take away from them. But again, for a tempo team, they needed to be a lot further ahead than they are right now. So 22 minutes, and they're ahead like 700 gold or something. They're down a Baron. Really nice Ryze ultimate to enter into the Baron pit, but it doesn't even matter. It should be over. 100 Thieves should actually just be able to close out the game. 100 Thieves gonna pick up the Ocean Drake, probably just because they feel very confident right now in the current state of the game. You can see that the Malzahar mid turret should fall, given the fact that 100 Thieves has the Baron buff. But it should be pretty hard, actually, to defend the mid tier 1. If they didn't have the Baron, it should be easy, but that should fall within a few waves. And you can see that 100 Thieves is actually trying to be really proactive. Or even just bringing Shen straight to the fight, basically saying, hey, I don't actually need him for teleport. Teleport's not really going to get the job done with anything. Because even if Shen uses a teleport, even if Someday's split pushing it right now, it's not going to do anything. He's just going to meet a brick wall inside of the Cho'Gath. So grouping up as 5 is okay. Now, alternatively, there is an option here where you could go 0-3-2. This is a little bit risky because of the Rengar and the Malzahar component, but normally this would actually be a pretty viable thing with the Ryze. So like Ryze plus a melee champion or something. You can use the Ryze to escort the melee up to a turret, and then you stay in close proximity, and then you use Ryze's ultimate to almost always be within close proximity to your neighboring lane with your champion. Not something that you see used all that often, but it is something that you can definitely do. Is it worth for all the members to get a QSS, even Braum? I think it would be better on Braum to have Mikhail's. The QSS isn't atrocious because of how far ahead they are. I think that it's a game dependent by like the state of the game. I think Mikhail's would probably just be a little bit better because Shen and Sejuani are so reliable right now. It's going to be very unlikely for Power Evil to lock down Aphromu, I think. And you can see that they're just trying to get something done, but they're not really doing it in a proper manner. So they're not utilizing their strengths and trying to force the door down, and Malzahar is just way too content pushing back waves. You can see Rai's not really accomplishing anything up top. He's going to need someone else if he wants to accomplish something. So they have to move their members around a little bit differently. Like I said, it would probably be better to actually, in this spot, go for a 2-3-0, but even 2-3-0 isn't that great. You have to pull away from the lane that Malzahar's at, and then you have to just juggle around him using the dual teleport. Escorting waves up to a turret and then uniting and cutting off the enemy team would also probably be an option. So like if they escort a wave up to here and then somehow put Optic behind their turret, if they can make their way through here and then come up to the top, it forces Malzahar back. They can use that. As long as they synergize the push in mid with when this lane is like right here, they can do this. They can do this play. If they crash the wave here, when this lane is like here, they can move through here, cut them off, force them to go through their base, cut them off here, here, and then collide as the lane unites with the turret, and Malzahar's forced to back all the way up, and then you shred it and you kite backwards, then you recall. Then what you end up doing is you can either do a 0-3-2 in mid, very risky, but obviously it pays off if it works, or you can just do a 0-4-1, and you pull them away from the Baron by eventually rotating to the right-hand side, and then you back up when the Baron has like 45 seconds, 50 seconds left on the timer, and then you establish Baron control with the Mountain Drake. This game's a pretty boring game. I didn't think anything could maybe be more dull than the SKT versus Jin Air. Which, by the way, I did not watch the game in its entirety. I just looked at the timer and the items. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to end up working. Face of the Mountain Sejuani seems a little bit weird. I guess he wants CDR, but honestly, Solaris Locket is just so insane. So I don't know why he's not getting that. Shen is being allowed to split push right now. And, I mean, eventually, 100 Thieves is just going to hit this, like, walking freight train where they can just bulldoze through the opposition with the Kog'Maw on the rise. And you can see, like, realistically, what has the Rengar pick done? And also, he's even starting to go a little bit hybrid. So I don't entirely know why that's the case. Why he's opting into the hybrid itemization. Or maybe that's Edge of Night. No, that's not Edge of Night. That's not the build path for Edge of Night. I'm a coach, by the way. Alright. Now, the typical NA fiesta. We're in mid lane when we don't need to be. Yeah, let's just have a fight that is completely needless. This is good. Yeah, this is fine. This is like the guy drinking the cup of coffee, and he's like, this is fine. This is all right. So all that 100 Thieves has to do here is turtle 4 people in this vicinity. Okay, you send Shen to bottom lane, wait for the response. Shen escorts the lane all the way up, and then you wait for an opening on Baron. You fight over the vision. You eat mid lane as it comes to you. You just have to take it slow. You're still scaling, you know. Kog'Maw still has time. You can even let him get to Scimitar. Just because you hit item spikes doesn't mean, like, go, 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 go. That's a pretty poor belief, if anyone would have that. Now you can see that Optic is actually just going to do the Baron, and they back off it, even though they have the Cho'Gath. Maybe they don't want to fight. Arrow's almost exhausted, though. He's almost out of mana. So now so now with 100 Thieves is here, they can try to get this up as fast as possible, but it looks like Power People already able to get in. I think they were a little bit slow here. You see how they kite down? They should have kited up. It would have axed them off from this, and they could have used it to get the turret. But a little bit slow on the decision there. A little bit slow on the trigger. And realistically, there's not any danger. Not with their itemization, not with how far ahead they are. It's virtually impossible from Optic like, let's say that Optic tries to, like, start a fight here, like inside of this square or something, right? Maybe we drag it down a little bit more. Doesn't matter. This angle is way too good for Braum. It's just way too good. Kog'Maw is going to rain down hell, all right? Sejuani loves this, Ryze loves it, etc. So what Optic's going to be forced to do is they're going to take this, then they're going to go around, they're going to lose the turret, eat the wave, and then 100 Thieves is going to back up through here, clear out all the vision, and then that's it, and then it's going to be a rinse, wash, repeat. And this is a situation that it's becoming more and more common in pro play with these type of team compositions. You don't see it happen every single time, but it should happen every single time. Pour by a power of evil to shove the wave. So let me explain this. They are the ones that are staring down the barrel of the gun, okay? When that is happening, this wave needs to eat this wave first, and then if you can manage it, it eats the wave that comes out of the Nexus next. This means that Optic will basically get full value out of the wave, and then it's a dead lane for 100 Thieves. They need to use these sort of tactics to claw their way back into the game. You can see that they're kind of panicking a little bit with like juggling stuff as Power of Evil is going to shove out the wave, and then they can't do anything with it because they're not in a position to try to capture any of this vision. So it's completely pointless to shove in the wave. It's just a poor choice because they can't make use of any of this. Now, if maybe like he's doing this because he's pressing for an item or something, that would be one thing. I don't have that information available to me, although it does look like maybe that was the case as he did just complete into a death cap. But then the question that you have to ask yourself is, could your team have delayed just another minute more, 45 seconds, 50 seconds more for this wave to be here, and then you unlock it? Then you snip the rope and you let the wave go into the opponent, and then it builds up like 3 times and then it crashes into the turret. If you could do that, if you could communicate with your teammates, that would be a lot better. Obviously, he is buying up for death cap. Maybe he didn't need those waves for death cap. Maybe that was just luxury. But that's information that I obviously don't have as I'm just watching the VOD. So, I don't really know. And I can see that both teams are clumping up again in mid. Elder Dragon is coming up, so maybe 100 Thieves even just thinking, okay, well, we're just going to start a fight. That's good. Yeah, really good angle. All right, there we go. All right, excellent. That was that was definitely useful. There is no universe Optic can control this and simultaneously get the Baron. They can't do it. Not against this team comp, especially because Ryze, he can just he has the oh shit button. Well, not exactly an oh shit button, but he can definitely reposition people accordingly to get through like locks or something. So with that being said, if Optic goes in here and they go to the Baron, this is like the thing that I talked about with like the swing set, right? The swing set thing I said earlier. Where, all right, there's a swing set. Okay, here's the swings, right? Optic doesn't really need vision on the Baron. If they have double blue trinket, whatever, if they use one ward, they can basically guess, okay, when, or I'm sorry, 100 Thieves. They can basically guess when Optic is going on to the Baron. And as long as they can get that right, that timing right, then they just enter in. Right? They don't need to invest a lot of pink wards. Not a lot of wards need to be invested into it, etc. You don't need Shen here for this, etc. And what they're doing is they want to keep their eyes open on the swing. They fail to realize that when they're swinging, right, whether they close their eyes or not, the swing is going up and then it's coming down. It's going up and it's coming down. They want the vision for a reason that is completely pointless. It's just luxury. It's just completely luxury vision. Bob Ross, that's right. Okay. So, and here's that situation. You see how they have to run up and around? Now again, Shen could already just actually be backed up and recall. I don't understand. You can see Ryu is maybe looking for like a pick or something. He's like trying to stay out of vision. And they almost, they actually do get it actually. I'm sorry, they get it onto elimination. So it ends up being cute, but this is mostly because Optic handshakes something that doesn't need to be handshaked. Look, Optic, are you going to lose the game if you drop 100 gold to every member on 100 Thieves right now? No, you're not. Just give up the turret. You can do this song and a dance, over and over and over. The turret is not crucial. It's not important at 35 minutes, and yet they try to defend it in a manner that is not important, and they end up losing Lemon Nation. Now they're losing control over all the Baron. 100 Thieves has Mountain Drake. They're going to be able to potentially pick this up. And you can see that, okay, well, that's a really nice usage of the Rise ultimate. Nice flank. Lemon Nation's not there. What is going... Hello? What? What? Meteos, you just saw Rengar. Okay, that was really good by Cody-san. This was a really, really weird fight. This was a very poor team fight out of 100 Thieves. That was really, really, really strange. Let's just try to watch this one more time. You hit him. You see... So, if this is on you, this means... correct me if I'm wrong, Twitch chat. This means Rengar is closest to you. Well, okay. If he's closest to... He has to be over here then. Which means just protect Cody-san. Take down one of them, right? Ryu has flash. You can just light up Power of Evil. I don't understand. This is a really, really weird team fight. Let's just talk about all the options here. Okay. You protect Cog. Cog walks here. Ryu flashes, like, at an angle down here, right? Auto, roots, Cog's here. Power of Evil just dies. Doesn't even matter if Ryu would end up dying. Just doesn't even matter. Zig still has ultimate, right? It doesn't matter. He can't get onto Cog. Can't do anything like that. Cog is basically inside of a shell, right? I mean, someday should even be able to get to here as, whatchamacallit, Ryu gets to here, hits this, taunt goes off. I mean, someday can even taunt Cho'Gath. I mean, this is just a very weird, like, he should be rooted. Like, the thing should never have been allowed to get to this point. I just want to watch this one more time. Like, he should already be over the wall. Arrow's out of mana. This shield should be popped. And then he should be rooted. This is the weirdest thing in the world. Okay. A very weird team fight. Cody-san, really, really nice kiting there. And Cody-san's running into a very angry Lemon Nation. Yep. Let's cast the ultimate. Gets him. Very, very weird team fight. So, 100 Thieves ends up losing a fight that should have been a dream fight for them. Someday, obviously, with a pretty poor taunt. I think that Ryu and Meteos really dropped the ball on this fight. Obviously, you can blame Sunday's taunt, but I don't think that that's the biggest issue. I think that how they chose to approach that was really weird. Twitch chat saying no vision on Malzahar. We can just look at this one more time. You don't need vision on Malz to know that he's in the brush. So, you know, he can't be anywhere else. You know? That's basically all that it is. Alright, now let's take a look at how the fight unfolds next. Looks like they're really scared of Cho'Gath just flashing in. And, okay, Optic has Elder. Somehow Zig managed to lose a smite. I mean, that's pretty hard. Honestly, that is hard. I really like how 100 Thieves, like, grouped up. Yeah, okay, well, that was really risky. The fact that Media, like... There was no reason to hit the Baron. Alright, let's just look at this. He's in. You could stop hitting Baron and just focus on Zig, but obviously credit to Meteos because he ended up smiting to secure it. And Rengar was able to get the Elder. So, in this situation, this is pretty unique because the Baron, it helps the minions get into the base, it helps them crack in, but realistically, 100 Thieves were already able to get into the base, right? They're just so strong as an engine. They're a siege tank right now. The Baron, it just helps speed up the process, but they can rinse, wash, repeat a lot. And the Elder, that's the real problem, because this is the exact thing that Optic needs to stay alive. AoE, you know, super long-range Malzahar silences, Ezreal with his long-range Q-poke, these are all things that they love. Lemon Nation, even. Like, his damage starts to become a little bit obnoxious. They have to really now play around the Elder. They're going to have to wait, be patient, and then group up, and then rinse, wash, repeat. The Baron isn't the highest priority in a scenario like this. Interestingly enough, Optic obviously likes both, but if Optic has Elder, they can resist the Baron. If Optic has Baron, they can't resist the Elder. So it's sort of like this really interesting flip-flop. Okay, Ryu now down in bottom, shoving up the wave with Baron. They can get away with this now because of the Baron minions. They finally have entered into the base. Oh, I keep saying Zigzag, I mean Zig. And now let's ask the question, why does Ryze come over to mid? Rather than Ryze come over to mid, right? Why not wait for this wave, right? Shen come down, and then unite with this wave and get this turret. When you pull all 5 over to this turret, okay, you then just bounce back to mid now as 5. And then you get into the base because you have tempo. You guys have priority. Well, that's a really big stone plate out of Chill. You can see bottom lane now really ugly, and they can't make use of it. So some lane management, some lane mismanagement coming out of 100 Thieves. They definitely could have made this be a lot cleaner. This is really just all about protecting Kog'Maw. It seems very difficult. It seems like Optic's team composition isn't as vulnerable and weak as it is, but it's mostly because 100 Thieves is mismanaging the lanes, and they're not capitalizing on the team fights as well as they could be. Scimitar on Ryze. Okay. I mean, I think that's completely fine, by the way, because it is important that he has that QSS. Okay. I have Ryze in bottom lane. This is a situation where the 0-3-2 becomes pretty powerful. The Baron's coming up in just under a minute. This game is going super, super, super late. Really don't like how 100 Thieves hasn't identified that blue trinkets are more valuable to them than yellow trinkets. I think that they should be on double blue. I mentioned that even earlier. I assumed that they were on double blue. Double blue is way more valuable with how Optic's team comp tends to be. And you can see that they're just A-ramming mid. And I think that this speaks to sort of like a panic, like of not knowing how to manipulate the waves and what exactly they can do and how they can do it. Zig is pretty obnoxious, and he is a brick wall, but it doesn't mean that Someday can't do something in the side lanes and still, you know, make use of that teleport or make use of that ulti. Some people might be wondering, like, oh, okay, well, if he's in the side lane, then Acadian can just go with Zig and, you know, maybe do something to Someday. You can still have enough of an idea to avoid that from happening, like in a death, but I think that this is actually the stage where, you know, knowing how to snip the threads on like locked up lanes, you know, killing 3 spellcasters and leaving the 3 melees, right? Killing the 3 melees and leaving the 3 spellcasters. Killing, or like leaving 2 melees and 1 spellcaster. Leaving 3 melees and a cannon, right? And killing the 3 spellcasters. Leaving the cannon and the 3 spellcasters, killing the front 3 melees. Understanding the speed rate and pushing the lanes becomes important in these like stalemate scenarios where it's hard to make use of one lane without the opponent eventually just being able to get back to it. The fact that Optic was able to sneak this Baron is concerning to me. This is very, very strange. Okay, now Elder, this is that situation I talked about earlier. Elder is even if Optic has Baron, if they lose Elder, they should lose the game. They should still lose the game. So it's all in on getting to that Elder. If they can get both, that's Exodia. All right, that's Approach the Second Sun. They cast it twice, they win. And you can see now they're barreling down mid. They should be able to eventually get mid tier 1. Now they end up actually forking 100 Thieves to come out of their red side jungle. And it's a little bit bizarre to me, because let's go back a little bit, okay? So fortunately for Optic, 100 Thieves ends up getting cut off in a pretty awkward manner. So when you see a situation like this is obviously really awkward, because it means that Optic beat you to the punch. Ideally, you would have them walking down as 5 into you. So let's go and see where this starts, because it's better to prevent problems than trying to fix them, right? Make it so that they can't happen. So right here, right? You can, if you have the blue trinkets, obviously they don't have any available, right? But if you have Meteos lead the pack and just cover like this, and then, you know, they come up like this, you can shove this wave quite easily, dodge the Morgana binding, shove the wave, stalemate lock, okay? You can do this for a little bit longer. Then, if you do it for a little bit longer and you require Optic to make use of this wave, you successfully delayed ever so slightly the position of the lane. They can now walk up the wave, and as long as you can stalemate it just a little bit longer, you can then basically give them an ultimatum. You have Ryu go with like Cody Sun, Afro, and maybe Meteos or something, and maybe you can try to ult into Elder, you know, unbeknownst to the enemy team, while they're still trying to barrel down mid, as long as you killed enough of the minions and you slowed down the speed of the push, and you can give up mid inhibitor in exchange for Elder, because if you give up mid inhibitor, they're not going to push on to the end of the game if they don't know exactly what all the members of 100 Thieves are. I don't think they have the ammunition to push to the end of the game. You know, if they're not having as many minions as they are having, they don't have a Mountain Drake, etc. There's plays that you can look for. This one would be really, really difficult to pull off. Optic would obviously also have options. We're banking on them coming down into mid. But it's a variable play that I don't often get to talk about, like variable plays like this, where it's going to actually come down to what the players choose rather than just the state of the game, suggesting that one should be a little bit better than the other. Teamfight breaks out, KDN just goes down immediately, and Guardian Angel, pretty good item. Now the Elder is up, and this is what I mean. They can't win against the... Oh, okay. Alright, sure. They kill a KDN. You see Zig down in bottom, and now they're going to lose the Elder. And it looks like everyone's actually recalling. And they're going to lose some turrets. And they don't lose the top turret. This is actually really, really, really big. Now, Ryu, see that? Bad. This is bad. This is an example I talked about. Throughout the entire course of this game, if 100 Thieves shoved this lane, right, and then tried to do a push here and here, someone could eat this lane and then arrive at the other lane. If 100 Thieves pushed this lane, someone could, and then, you know, push this lane with minions and then use this lane, someone could get here, eat it, and then arrive to the lane to defend. Okay? This is like those advanced things that I talked about earlier on, that it's really important. Pro teams, LCK top tier teams don't do it. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't. Okay? Right here, you don't need to eat these minions. They're not going to do anything for you. Okay, let these minions and the next wave pile up and then collide against this, and then the next wave. And eventually, you have this huge bomb building up. And now, when you do push this lane and this lane is gigantic, and the speed at which it's pushing is too slow. Optic can't commit someone to running all the way up here to deal with it. They can't commit someone to run all the way up here to deal with it. Which means now, if you synergize correctly, like, you know, your team play, and you synchronize the speed at which you push the lane, you can arrive at this lane with like 4 waves built up. Yeah, Malzahar is going to be able to shove it, but you're still going to have some fodder. It's a lot better than what you're doing now. Because if Ryu shoves this and it goes out, the strength of the minion wave just isn't enough. It's not enough to actually threaten. Don't have to shove all the minions. Yep. You can see that they can't really use anything. They're really waiting on that bottom lane. Because the bottom lane is the fork. The bottom lane is the pincer. Oop, gets rooted, and here comes the bottom lane. And look at how forceful they were with mid. They weren't patient, and because they weren't patient, what ended up happening is they took a beating, and so now they're out of fuel. The bottom lane arrives, and they took too much damage, so they can't go to it. And it's like, why? Why aren't you just dancing a little bit longer? You don't need to get that inhibitor right now. The fight is going to be what ends the game. If they just waited a little bit longer, right? Wait 30 seconds longer before you do a little, song and a dance, right? Restrict them from going over here, right? While the giant wave's down here. By the time this wave gets here, this wave is almost cracking up here. So now you ride this wave up, you come mid, you make them, do the dance at mid, and then if you can control this for some reason because they're approaching from this angle, if you can walk up with a few members and meet this wave at this turret, you get a turret. They're not utilizing the side waves enough, and it's costing them dearly. Really like what Arrow's doing. He's trying to 1v9. And they're going to lose. Because the Siege Engine tried to bring the fight to Optic rather than utilizing the neutral objectives to force Optic to bring the fight to them, in which case you're demanding that a Mal's, Cho, and Rengar has to walk into a Kog'Maw. A Kog'Maw that has a defensive Sejuani. Which doesn't make any sense. They're pushing way too quick. They're not wanting to play an intelligent game. Okay? They're trying to play Mortal Kombat, and I'm telling them, listen, Super Smash Bros. Is the best fighting game of all time. Alright? This is like your friend in high school or something that, he calls it cheating to wave dash. Yeah, Super Smash Bros. Melee. Yep. Now Optic's bringing the fight to them. Poking with that Ezreal. And the lanes are really ugly. And a lot of people can look at this, right? And they can blame it on like a pick ban. They can be like, oh, 100 Thieves draft, yada yada. No. Draft doesn't have to do with this game. Realistically, 100 Thieves' team comp is a lot better. As long as you know how to play the map. Is it obnoxious? Is it difficult to get in on the Malzahar and the Ezreal and the Cho'Gath? Yeah, absolutely it is. Does it mean it's impossible? No. It's a pretty unique situation where I actually would like to see ZZ Rots out of the supports. Pretty unique situation. I think ZZ Rot would actually be really, really valuable in this particular game. You can see Lemon Nation actually has a lot of AP. I would be really curious on the damage difference between Deathcap versus Liandry's. That's something that interests me a lot. Is the Deathcap really that valuable with that little AP? You see she has 386, but that's post Deathcap. So I wonder if Liandry's Torment, the tankiness, the added utility, the burn onto that Sejuani, that Shen, even the Rise, the Braum, etc. I wonder if that's more valuable. Elder coming up now. 10 seconds. And, this Elder now makes or breaks the game. Baron does not do anything really for either team. Elder is the true objective. You know what would be one of the most ghetto things of all times? Actually, I don't know if the range is big enough, so never mind. I told this to Caps once. I told it to Caps. I was coaching Caps like 11 months ago or something, and I was telling him something about Rise I've never seen a team do or anyone do. You can suicide a wave with Rise, right? You can take this wave and what I was telling him is rather than have a wave lock up, you can suicide the wave and have a wave come in and collide with the next wave. So you could take a wave and ult it behind the enemy wave, or you could take a wave and ult it backwards. And this causes that pile up that I talked about earlier to occur in a different manner. Something that would be super, I don't know if the range actually allows for it. Talk about not knowing Rise's ultimate range. Let me actually check. Coach, by the way, what is Rise's ultimate range? Warp Realm, 3000. I don't know if Rise can take a wave right here and ult it right here, and then start the Elder against the enemy team. That seems super ghetto. I would love to see that happen. Like a giant wave of 30 minions acting as fodder. That would be so insane. I don't know if the range is actually there for that, though. And then again, 100 Thieves is trying to go into Optic. That's never going to work. Malzahar is King Kite. He is King Kiter. Ezreal, King Kiter. This doesn't make any sense. It's like watching Dragon Ball Z, right? When, an opponent is just clearly outmatched and the person's just, toying with them, backing up and deflecting everything. It's basically Malzahar. You can't just go headstrong into him. You need to make him come into you. It's a lot more difficult to balance that. What? Okay, well, somehow 100 Thieves managed to get Elder after a dance. Alright, bottom inhibitor turret goes down. 100 Thieves gets Baron. Oh my god, it's like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Oh man. I do a VOD review of SKT versus KT or something, or the old Longzoo, and I'm like, yeah, that was an M. Night Shyamalan movie. They're like, oh, great, LS. And I'm like, yeah, you want to see this other M. Night Shyamalan movie? They're like, yeah, LS, yeah, you said that about that really great game that one time. I'm like, yeah, this one's The Village. And you're like, oh, 100 Thieves versus Optic here. Oh, man. I can't see how, in any universe, 100 Thieves can lose this. It shouldn't be possible at this point. Meteos is really trying his damnedest, but I don't think it's possible anymore. I think that they're just way too strong. Yeah, top turret falling too. This is pretty much it. Yeah, back off. They rotate up to top now. Alright, they got the 7v5 enabled. So if you don't know, if you're not familiar with ever hearing me say that, I used to talk about it on the LCK casts. I talk about it frequently on my stream. 7v5 is, we have all three inhibitors down. Generally, it takes 2 champions to handle them. So it basically counts as 2 players. And it looks like this is probably going to be the end. This is just way too much pressure. Yeah, this is definitely going to be the end. They can just right-click the Nexus. Yeah, KDA. Alright, so that was it. So, 100 Thieves, they did a lot of stuff. They look a lot... They look better in the earlier stages, but it seems like they're lacking still on a lot of core fundamental things that would help them close out sooner. And it's the most difficult stuff to get better at. I thought Arrow did fantastic this game. I thought Arrow was doing so well. I think that some of the stuff they got away with was also really good. Rengar pick doesn't make sense. Doesn't seem like they know how to utilize it. It seemed almost like it was just pointless at so many different parts of the game. I think that the game would have been over way sooner, that initial Baron where Meteos hit Acadian and then nothing happened, but that was pretty much it. So, alright, let's go into the next game.